And welcome in to another episode of the Q Crew on the Tell Me More podcast. I'm your host, Mac Moore. Hi, I'm Mac is how I should say it. And we have a great crew here today. This one's going to be pretty exciting. I feel like Ethan is the only one on the panel that hasn't worked at Walmart. Is that accurate?
I have not worked at Walmart.
Right.
I did help an old lady select a video game for her grandson once because I happened to be wearing a blue polo, but I didn't get paid for it, so I don't think that counts.
Nah, I mean, we didn't get paid very well either. Don't worry about
it. All right, then we've all worked at Walmart then.
And we didn't help, so you might have done more for Walmart.
Fucking employee of the minute is what I was.
Yeah, you weren't a smart employee unless you figured out just wear a blue shirt. And then if you want to get real fancy, do the button up and everybody could hate you. But we have a fun crew. We got Nick Adams joining. I believe you've done some podcasts with me before, but this is the first time you're on the Q Crew, so that's exciting, right?
Q. Thought you kicked me off forever. But...
Yeah, I was just lazy for a year. I had to apologize to Colin as well. Colin has been a staple on the Q Crew since we brought it back. He's been on, I believe, 80% of the episode. That's a number I made up out of thin air, but it seems accurate. Jeff, Cousin Jeff, that'll be the only way you can refer to him. If anybody would like to address him, it has to be Cousin Jeff. He's been on a few podcasts now. Ethan's been on all of the wrestling shows, or at least the second half of them. He joined late and is just, we've never been able to get rid of him. Kind of like this COVID-19. He has a lot in common with the pandemic. And then Nat Harper in the corner there, first time guest on the podcast. I can't believe we haven't done this before. We should have done it long before now. Say hi to the Tell Me More podcast audience.
Hello, y'all.
Yeah, that's 4 people. They're excited. So
I know. They're ready.
We're here today to talk about a fun show. Dave on it was is it FX or FXX?
FXX.
Yeah, I feel like Nick thinks this is the McMillions podcast. You're gonna sit through a Dave podcast. I'm sorry, man.
All right. Second week.
All right. I mean, if I would have said it wrong, this is Wednesday. McMillions is on Thursday. I got a lot of stuff going on right now. Trying to keep them in line. So this is a show that Colin was originally the one who told me to watch it. I mean, in fairness, a lot of people told me this was a good show and to jump in. It took me a little while. Once Colin said, hey, we need to record a podcast, I'm like, all right, I can do that. Even if it's just to make fun of it, which I think is now Nick's role on this podcast. Of I watched an episode and I don't like it, so here's why I don't like it. I was ready to just watch it for that, because you might as well have a podcast where one person loves it and I'm there to tear it down. That's what I do on our wrestling podcast every week. It's the perfect role for me. But from the get-go, from the jump, Dave was awesome. I knocked it out in a day. Me and the wife just sat there. We did not get up off the couch except to get Little Debbie snacks, and we made it through pretty fast. Just starting out with, I know I had no idea who Lil Dicky was. It was a name that floated around that I've heard, but I don't think I'd actually listened to any of the songs until this started. I did see a commercial for it, and I thought it was interesting enough to give it a shot, but not based off of where I think some people are like, oh, that's Lil Dicky. Let's see if the show about him is good. What was everybody else's experience with Lil Dicky before watching this series, or in Nick's case, not watching and then not reading messages about when podcasts are? Colin, we'll start with you.
So it's funny because I listened to a fair amount of hip hop and rap music, and I knew who Lil Dicky was. And I actually had the opportunity to see him in 2017 at Firefly Music Festival, but I decided not to because one of my favorite bands, Mizio, was playing at the same time, and I had to choose Mizio. So to start, I didn't listen to a lot of Lil Dicky, but then when I heard this show Dave was out, I was like, oh, that's cool that he's like a rapper, but he wants to make a TV show. And I started it on episode 3. So I watched the first 3 episodes right off the bat, and then I was mad at myself because I had to wait a whole week for every new episode. Like I didn't wait till the whole season had already come out. But it made for a fun, like every Thursday night, I was like, okay, I'm going to spend half an hour, watch the new episode of Dave. But it was really cool to see the transition between Dave Burd and Lil Dicky. And even though it's a TV show and it's just like not his real life, a lot of it seemed to be not far off from what his real life was like from, let's say, 2014 to now.
Okay, we'll jump on over to cousin Jeff. What was your experience with Lil Dicky going into the show?
Yeah, so like I also listen to a lot of hip hop, but I also have these videos that pop up on my phone every once in a while, and it showed Little Dicky just busting off a rhyme at a hip hop studio on the radio, and I fell in love with him. I thought he was good. He was a good rapper, and then the first time hearing about the show is through you guys from that last podcast. So I thank you for that, and I loved it.
All right, good recommendations running down. Ethan, Little Dicky.
Yeah, so I had only seen the music video for Earth before watching the show, and that was my only exposure to Lil Dicky. And kind of like you, the advertisements really drew me in, and also it's kind of like that. It was right at the start of like lockdown, so it was like cool. There's another show to watch, and like Colin said, it was like, yeah, this is like a thing. I'm gonna carve out time and watch this each week and enjoy it. And also to add on to what you said, Colin, of it being like it's a dramatization of his early stage of his career, a lot like Crashing with Pete Holmes on HBO, if you guys have seen that, or even kind of like
I watched like a couple episodes.
I'd say even like Marin is another example. Like a lot of comedians, that's how their TV shows have kind of always been. Is it's a dramatization of their actual life. But there's definitely some truth in there. But it was interesting to watch, and and from the ads on, you can tell it's not just about his rap career; it's more about him as a person, which I thought was a really cool, interesting level of character development to kind of follow throughout the whole season.
All right, Nat, I know you're another hip hop head, and I was planning to have basically Brandon on here as well, and just have you, Brandon, and Colin give me the rundown on if Little Dicky's rap chops actually live up to the high praise he gives himself in this show. How much is the narcissism of the character of the real person, Dave Burd, and how much is accurate to what he brings whenever he jumps onto the mic?
So I actually discovered him through his freestyles, first of all. So like I binged a shit ton of those on YouTube. Like that man spits fire. Like it is crazy when he starts going off and he finds a beat. Like the way he switches like rhythms while he's like freestyling is pretty amazing. So I had actually seen the advertisements. So I had a calendar set and a reminder. So I've been watching the show from the beginning, and I love it.
Yeah, I know that it was he's got a following, so that's part of my experience before the show. Is the name was in my head. It wasn't just like I've never heard of this at all, but it was also something that didn't have any sort of like strong opinions from people. Nobody's like running around telling me, how have you not heard of Little Dicky, this and that, but his name was clearly out there and enough people enjoyed him that it was kind of, once I saw the advertisement, I'm like, okay, this is probably the best way for me to jump in anyways, because I'm not going to go grab one of his, whether it's a mixtape, whether it's just listen to a bunch of freestyles or going and find an album and just going, through every track. So it's probably better to find a show on FX. And I feel like the comedies on there have been pretty amazing. Ethan was comparing it to something like Marin and, whether it's Louis, all these things that are people being sort of themselves, but different. They're able to kind of get rid of their pride a little bit and find a way to make a great comedy because they know, okay, part of this is what I know. This is real. This is part of my life. Also, I don't have to worry about it veering away from real events, and so it has a lot of things in common with those shows. But when you look at shows, whether it be Atlanta, obviously it's another rapper that you can easily compare it to. But I compared it to Man Looking for Woman, Man Finds Woman with Jay Baruchel. Now I forgot the name of the actual show, but Man Seeking Woman. So that's another one that the comedy type matches more. And then in terms of the content, obviously this is not as absurdist as that show is, but I've just been amazed by how many great things have been on FX. And originally, you know, it's like I probably watched Always Sunny and that's it. You know, that's probably the only thing that ever came out of there. And in the last like 5 years, particularly as we're getting into streaming, like I'm watching it on Hulu and I'm like, who made this? And when I look it up, it's FX or it's FXX. And I don't really know the difference, but I know they're making good shit right now. So I've really enjoyed that. And I knew going in that I'd probably like this style of humor. I just didn't know that it would be this this clean and this good. I think from beginning to end, this show never really let down. Every time an episode ended, I was on to the next one and just enjoying every beat of it. And that's why right now I'm just going to keep picking on Nick. With all these people on here that love the show, how are you the one that watched an episode and like,
I watched more than one episode.
Oh, okay.
I kept going, but this show really started off on the back foot with the advertisements. I live in LA, and I would drive past the billboard of Lil Dicky basically sticking out through his own underpants.
And you're saying this is a negative.
At me twice a day for what felt like months. And I was like, no, I don't care about this show. And it's just some guy making fun of his dick for the whole show. Then I'm not going to be into it. But friends such as yourselves were pushing on me and be like, all right, got to watch it. So I'm like, fine, maybe won't hold an advertisement against a show. I watch it. First scene in a doctor's office, not unlike Silicon Valley, but it's like, oh, no, actually this show is going to be mostly about his dick. And when the show veers away from that, it is at its best. When it goes into the side characters, like does kind of like dedicated episodes to his hype man or his girlfriend or other friends, I think it gets a lot stronger. In that way, I would hope it's kind of like Orange is the New Black, and that maybe Dave takes a back seat. Season 2 has been renewed. I don't really care to see more about him trying to figure out if he's funny or a serious rapper. I would just care about anybody else more, and that's when the show's at its best.
Okay. Strongly disagree. Nick, you can leave now and we'll talk to you tomorrow on McMillions if you need to. As we move around, we'll start with Colin. What about the show was really good and why Nick is an awful person?
Well, I was sucked in pretty quick. Like first episode, I was interested, but then like the final like 2 or 3 minutes of the first episode when he's in the studio with YG and he already like had given YG's agent 10 grand and was like, that's his bar mitzvah money. Like he's invested. He's gonna do whatever it takes to collaborate with YG. And then YG's like, go ahead. Like, what do you got? And he's like, oh, right now? Like, I don't know. And then he's all awkward, like just typical Dave Burd. And then once YG says, okay, screw that, and then he's going to start playing something, Dave's like, okay, allow me to introduce myself. And then goes into a 90-second freestyle that's fantastic. And then the whole season continues to show him in little clips in the studio. But that end of the first episode I thought was one of the strongest, when he finally allows himself to just be free and talk a little bit. And the little Magic Johnson AIDS joke I thought was pretty good too. But
all right, let's keep moving around. Jeff, what was really stood out about the show for you?
Yeah, that opening scene when he's at the doctor's office and he's talking about how his dick, why they call him Little Dicky, and he's explaining to the doctor what his dick looks like. I just thought it was the most outrageous beginning of a show that I've seen. And I just love that. And then the episode probably was it 3 or 4 where his girlfriend made a milking table, and then his roommate, or not, I always think he's his roommate, but it's not his roommate. But his best friend pulls into the driveway, and the door slowly goes up, and he's just sitting there in awe, just like staring at you. They just left it. They just paused there for so much laughter, and I thought it was a great part of this whole series. It was my favorite part, probably.
So you're saying the parts that involved Little Dicky's dick were actually the best parts of the show?
Hey, girlfriend was involved too in that milking station, but I just thought it was hysterical.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. Ethan, you're next up. The last 2 people had really great responses, but none of them told me why Nick is an awful person. So if you could incorporate that into your answer on what you liked about the show, go ahead.
I'm going to say that I'll get to that part. I'll work back to it.
Okay.
But
I trust you.
no, it kind of to tack on my biggest the bit that popped me the most is a few episodes after that. They're having a cookout and Mike throws a pitcher of iced tea on the table and it's the milking table and it sags through is like visually the funniest thing that happens in that entire season.
One of the better callbacks
We're not
in
happy
all
about that,
of
are we?
TV history.
Yeah. But also kind of similar to like at the end of episode 1, at the end of the season finale, when he's on the Breakfast Club and he also has a similar moment where he gets to like kind of show his chops, because the whole thing is his character development is based around kind of his own his passion kind of crossing with his narcissism, and that he does have sort of this ability to back up his own ego, to the sense that he can put his billboard up in Los Angeles of him flying out of his own fly, representing his dick, as saying, hey, I'm going to make an entire show about my dick and it's going to work, and have it actually fucking work, Nick. So that's why you're a bad person.
Thanks, Ethan, for following the question and actually answering it appropriately. Yeah, you bring up a good point too. It's not just the narcissism crossing over with the passion. It's the narcissism crossing over with the like stereotypical insecure Jewish character that is not just a character. It is the real parts of Dave Burd that he brings to the table. And those moments where you're seeing kind of him outside of rap is a guy who is not sure about himself, has a lot of insecurities. You would say a lot that we can relate to, but he's more insecure than the average person. And it ends up to be, to hilarious ends, but it's still weird that that's who he is. And then whenever the rap stuff comes back in, he is super narcissistic and very confident in his abilities, where he's not confident in most of his abilities to be a functioning adult in normal life. I definitely enjoy that juxtaposition that I thought early on that he wouldn't be able to ride that line for a whole season. And instead it like climax, not to make any sort of sex joke at the end, but it finished at the end in a way that I couldn't believe they stuck the landing on that arc of his character. And they did it so well. I thought that final episode easily could have just been like, well, you've gone 100 miles an hour for every episode. There was no up and down. There's no real, it's just every time. Great episode. How do you finish this in a way? Nick, shut up. I think it was great. Oh, I didn't know if you were gesturing saying it didn't finish. So pay attention to the conversation. Nick, be a good person. I think that the way they finished the season, it was amazing how it was still as good in the final episode. It wasn't this weird, like, well, I guess maybe it'll be better next season. It was like, I wanted to watch the next season as soon as it said, well, it started playing some trailer for a shitty show. Probably one of the one Nick told me to watch. And I didn't watch that show. And instead, I just enjoyed the end of Dave. Nat, talk to me about the things you enjoyed and just that character that he is, where it's 50% him, 50% this like exaggeration of his insecurities to keep making us laugh throughout 10 episodes or however long it is.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Burd is like, feels like the character that the show is based on. Like, I mean, the little dick jokes and whatever, they're there, but like they aren't in a massive quantity as much as people want to say they are. I think that gets you hooked because it's fucking hilarious. I mean, the milking table scene, yes, that was hilarious. Go ahead, hop on the table. I'm gonna eat your ass. Let's go all the way. Ride the momentum. That was, oh, so good. But I think that like one of the important things that the show managed to do was that episode with Gata and him going to the hospital, and that was just so fucking impactful. And it's like, how the fuck did they squeeze that much into this comedy show that's so serious? And like, the drug they prescribed him is actually what they use for bipolar. So I thought the realism in that was like super important. So that was my favorite part, was just like how you see the characters just like subtly change or have like these background stories. And yeah, I mean, Dave Burd is great, but the rest of the ensemble is what the show is really about.
Yeah. And Nick,
I feel like
he didn't say you were right. He just said part of what you said was accurate.
Yeah,
that's all he said.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that Gata thing, and why that works is being that we laughed with him before in his kind of manic, crazy attitude and wondering when you can't even trust him. in the first couple of episodes, and then for it to come back to a very real bipolar thing, frankly reminded me of Rick and Morty, and Rick saying "wubba dubba dub dub" or whatever.
Yeah, these are same bar right there.
I think it's equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Thanks, Nick. Is that all you had? I thought you were on a roll there. I was gonna let you talk for a little bit. Yeah, no, I think Gata is definitely it hits you too, because there's a lot of shows where they'll try to incorporate some more serious stuff. This one was going just pure comedy the entire time, and even when they were kind of serious stuff, it was baked into, whether it was a dick joke or whatever else it was, it stayed funny in those kind of more serious looks at some of the characters. That episode definitely, it was a complete change in tone, and I would say it would have, some people might have felt like they were taken out of the show because of it, but I think it worked perfectly, and they stuck with it as long as they needed to, and it was something that added to that character. It made me think, oh, wait, I could be invested in the show for more than just the laughs, and I think it did a good job throughout the rest. It didn't need to, stay on that tone for the rest of the time, but I think they handled it very well and incorporated it, and it almost like it was at the perfect time, because I think some people might have had that same idea that Nick had. You get to that many episodes where it's like, am I going to watch 3 seasons of this with that level of humor? You need a little bit more depth, and I think they hit you at just the right time in that first season to let anybody know who might have second guessed sticking with it. Like, that made sure, yeah, we're going to stay with it. Some good stuff's going to happen. Colin, as somebody who really enjoys, rap music and enjoys these type of comedies, did you think that there was the right balance in terms of the music incorporated into the stories, in terms of the music that's played, in terms of how much you mentioned earlier that they kept focusing on some of the things outside of his rap career, that you got those little moments early and then a little bit late, but it wasn't a rap show. It wasn't largely based on what he was doing in the studio. Do you think they found the right balance with those aspects of the show?
So at first I wanted more music, because I'm just obsessed with music. So I wanted it. And then as more episodes kind of went along, I was glad we weren't hit over the head with a bunch of beats and a bunch of music, because the other characters were fantastic. Like his girlfriend, played by Taylor Mashak, she was so good. Like in her role, like she played a teacher, and there's that scene where she goes to her sister's wedding and her sister's the worst. But like every character gets better and better. And like Nat mentioned a minute ago, but that scene with Gata, like it worked so well because we cared about the characters. Like it didn't happen in episode 1. Like the characters were believable, they were real. And it's also cool. I did a little research and saw that in real life, Gata actually has bipolar. And so like, it just felt so real that like Lil Dicky, Dave stopped what he was doing and it was like, just kind of was a friend. He wasn't like, he wasn't his hype man anymore. He was just a friend in that moment. And in my personal opinion, I think this show did more for mental illness than any show I've seen in the last few years. So I think that's what carries the most weight looking back on it. But no, I don't think it needed more music. I did love how the episode 10 ended though, with him on the Breakfast Club, because that's just who Dave is. But I think they did a really good job of not making music in every single episode.
All right. I know after that final Breakfast Club episode, I had not seen the real life, Lil Dicky Dave showing up in that funny little intro where he's like, well, I'm just Dave. That's what I call myself. That being the real intro that he has while talking to Charlemagne the God at the Breakfast Club. So I had to go watch it immediately. Kick it over to you, Jeff. How much of that were you, looking into? Were you like me, where you just found out about this guy, you liked what you saw in Dave, and you started looking up the videos and everything else? Or how much have you kind of jumped in? Have you not had enough time at this point?
I mentioned earlier that I just kind of saw him do like just kind of freestyling at some radio shows. And I just loved his rhyme, and I loved how he kind of switched beats and so smoothly too. It just comes so natural for Lil Dicky, it seems. One thing about the show, Colin, you mentioned that there wasn't enough beats, and that was justified. I thought that they could have added just one more at the show. I just wish they would have had him rap, or they showed him on stage rapping at his first show. That's my only complaint about the show.
All right, real quick, we're gonna try to jump into the different cameos. what is the best cameo? I think in my mind, I have one just because it's not just somebody showing up and it's somebody I know, but it is one of the funniest uses of a cameo. But we'll start with Ethan. What was your favorite person that's famous, a rapper, whatever, that showed up on the show Dave?
You're putting me on the spot now. I'm just trying to guess yours. I mean, probably Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber's pretty good.
I think
That shit was so awkward.
I think that because that interaction is so painful to watch towards it. Like, it starts out very smooth and cool, and he's actually like kind of hitting his dream of being big time and like rubbing elbows with Justin Bieber, but then he gives him the most awkward fucking hug. Also, that scene gives birth to the phrase "pipe," which I use on a daily basis. And I'm really, and I even tack on that it is an acronym that we're trying to get off the ground. I say we because I think there's more than just me and Dave Burd out there doing this.
Yeah, it's growing by the day. Nat, what was your favorite cameo?
Ooh, I'm gonna actually flip it and talk about the one I hated.
Oh, go for it. That's perfect.
Trippie Redd. I mean, that guy was dull and dead and awful, and I could not stand every second he was on screen. I mean, like, I like some of his rap shit, but like, get the fuck off camera.
He's got an 8 in the middle of his face like a fucking calculator. That's like one of my favorite lines of the entire show.
Yeah.
This guy's so fucking intimidating. He's got an 8 in the middle of his face like he's a fucking calculator.
So I would agree with the Trippie Redd criticism if not for he leads to the little kid showing up, and I feel like as soon as he leaves the screen, that is just comedy gold for the next like 15 minutes. I love the money. It's like, do you need to eat? And the kid's just like, yeah. And it
yes.
is, you know, like everything from there, the stupid wooden shirts that they're wearing, all of that. It's just so asinine.
You got any socks?
You got any socks? Yeah, that kid should get more work.
So I'll give Trippie Redd.
Hire that kid.
I'll give Trippie Redd a pass because as a wrestling fan, I'm assuming in kayfabe that that's just his actual nephew. That's not a child actor. That has to be related to Trippie Redd. Don't tell me any differently. Nobody Google it.
They look the same.
It just has to be like I have to buy into the story. Once it's Trippie Redd on screen as himself, he can't just be bringing on fake family members. Just like I don't know who Colin said is the actress, but that's his actual girlfriend in the show. Colin, like this is Dave, his girlfriend, his best friend. He's best friends with Andrew Santino. Like, that's just a fact. Like, don't tell me these are actors playing roles. For me, the cameo, I'll just hit mine and then I'll start going around to the last people who haven't said yet. It's Macklemore, because God, was that it was so good. And even as it's happening, I assumed he was going to be as dull as Trippie Redd, and instead Macklemore lands it. And it might be this like Peyton Manning on SNL type of thing. Like, you just have to clear a very low bar because they've already set up the joke so well. But Macklemore walking in and taking, like, is this my mic? Thank you. It was perfect. And, like, he nails it. The lead in is so great. And the fact that to that moment, I don't know how you finish the episode because it was such a dark topic that they just kind of moved around for a while in a great way. And then it becomes about Dave and how important he is about improving himself. And it was just like, there's not a way to finish this that like doesn't end up becoming offensive because you started on an offensive topic and there's just no way out. We'll give you credit. We'll wait to see what you do. But how do you pull it off? Macklemore disrespecting Dave and just ruining his confidence in that moment. Picture perfect. Love the cameo. I don't think it gets better. Nick, are you in agreement, or do you have another good option to throw in?
Yeah, I'm in agreement because I thought that was the most maybe realistic part of the show. Of just, you know, the industry, whatever industry it is, doesn't care about you. Dave didn't get disrespected any more than anybody else who hasn't done things at that point. You know, that version of Lil Dicky hadn't done things. And so why would anybody do anything more than that for him?
I feel like he should have at least got to open for Macklemore. I think that's the disrespect.
Yeah, right.
Like, he got nothing. It was just like, yeah, you were really just here as backup because Macklemore was a long shot. And once Macklemore said, it's like, I'm not even sure if my kid liked your music. If you could just step to the side real fast.
Little Dicky.
He even asked Macklemore. He's like, how much stuff do you got? He's like, I can go all day. I can go all day.
Tons of hits, huge catalog.
I
And then
don't
when he's like, let's make it so loud in here, John can hear it in heaven.
Yeah.
I don't think I appreciated Macklemore until that moment. I think it was like a one-off song kind of thing for me, and now I feel like maybe I overlooked Macklemore because God, he delivered. That was about as good as you could expect from somebody coming in for one scene, and yeah, just nailed it. Colin, you could just say yes and then tell me number 2 if you want to. Go for it.
Yeah, it is Macklemore, but since you took that one and you summed it up pretty well, I'll just say, and I'm not a Kardashian fan, but I just love this scene with Kourtney because he says bye Court, and it's just so his girlfriend's reaction to him calling Kourtney Kardashian Court, I thought was just so funny, and I was like, okay, that's good. So I'll say Kourtney.
All right, I'll let Jeff jump in, but first I want to say that what adds to that for me is when I started researching this in post, that is based on a real interaction he had with Kourtney Kardashian. And once we get done with Jeff's pick, we'll jump to a few of the things that you find out are based on real things such as Gata is Gata, that's just who he is. There are some other people that you might not be sure whether they're just acting in the show, and we'll talk about that next. But Jeff, real quick, tell me who your best cameo was for the show.
I think it has to be Macklemore. That was my favorite scene. Just when he, like I said, when he walked up there and he said, I can go all day. It was just the perfect setup. And how he had mentioned Macklemore and being as big as Macklemore or bigger than Macklemore, and just for Macklemore to take his spot, it would just kind of set up the shows. Like now Lil Dicky's a little bit more hyped to put in some more work, to do the work to do what it needs to be done to be bigger than Macklemore. It just kind of set it up for a future.
All right. How many people here knew that Benny Blanco is actually Benny Blanco and is literally his role is actually what he does in real life, just cutting people at the knees who aren't quite as good at the rap game as they think they are, any sort of pop music game. I was not aware. I thought, particularly by how weird his face was and the fact that he could act, it's like there's no way he's that character. They just found a good bit actor to do this. Nope, that's him. He really does this in real life.
And anyone who makes a good, solid Andre the Giant reference in any form of media, I'm already a fan of. I looked him up halfway through that episode because I was like, who the fuck is this actor? He's hilarious. And I was like, this is just him. This is just who he is as a person. He added a lot, especially kind of as you get to the last few episodes of the season, as far as adding a new character and it adding something to the show as well when you've already grown with the development of your main core group of characters. He was just this perfect call it a chef's kiss to the end of the ensemble there.
All right, I saw Nat and Colin both shaking their head yes, like the true hip-hop heads they are. We should have just known this going in. We'll start with Nat. Were you aware that that's who he was and he was just playing himself on the show?
Yeah, I mean, he's well known for producing and making beats, and he's produced some of the most popular songs or number one songs in the last 10, 15 years. What's that?
I forgot he did TikTok, so obviously you already knew who Benny Blanco was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love TikTok.
Colin, same TikTok fandom?
I love me some Kesha, but no, I knew who I knew who Benny Blanco was just because he's collaborated with some really big guys and he's produced lots of big hits. So I thought his role was really cool that he just was playing himself.
But I didn't know he could stretch those cut me up, pour me wasabi, grind my own nipple on me. That shit was so good.
So this is going to be tough on you guys because it's going to have to pull away from things other than what we just watched. In terms of people on TV shows that are playing themselves and delivering, like Benny Blanco, great performance. Do you guys have even a couple off the top of your head that are great roles that people did where they came in, played a version of themselves, not like Louie and Marin where they're the lead character, but just somebody that was on a show where, oh, here's this cameo. Oh, this person can actually act, and you were surprised by it. Nick, we'll start with you. This is only topic I think you're going to have a good value on.
Ouch. But
I'm kidding, Nick. Kind of. Sometimes.
I think the whole run of 30 Rock did it pretty masterfully. They had several. And when they brought in real people that were always playing some kind of twist on their real life self, whether it's Conan O'Brien, or the stupid news people, the whole news division at NBC, when they would show up. I think that was where they just got a lot of comedy from. That was the first.
That's a pretty good one. I'll change it to, because I realized I did not narrow it down enough, because Nick's right. There's probably an endless list of when it's actors playing themselves in some kind of fictionalized version. But in terms of people that are not traditionally performers, so in this case, Benny Blanco is obviously in the middle of the performance industry, but that's not really his role to come out and do that. So obviously, if you take somebody like Conan, he's pretty good at playing a role on TV. So like, I'm not criticizing you, Nick.
Okay,
I'm not criticizing you.
Somebody like Kevin Garnett in Uncut Gems.
So I count that 100%, and that's bam. You stole
You just
Colin's
stole the
answer.
best one.
Yeah. Colin, what's your answer?
Well, I won't elaborate on Kevin Garnett, but the one funny thing that I thought of, which is totally, it doesn't count, but I just love like when The Simpsons brings on characters that play like a little version of themselves, like in a little kind of cameo, like, oh wait, that's Blink-182 on The Simpsons, and then they're gone. So totally different, but
you just probably pointed to Ethan's answer that'll come up when he gets going. He'll have a good one there. Jeff, do you have a solid answer for this one?
Bob Barker and Happy Gilmore. Oops, sorry, guys.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, Bob Barker and Happy Gilmore. Yeah,
I feel like that toes the line a little bit, because he is that performer. He's just kind of being himself, like he is on Price is Right. But no, he definitely has to play it a little bit differently and nails the performance. So I'll give you that. Ethan, what's your pick?
I'm going to pick Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson pretending to be a Hollywood actor in everything he's ever done, because we all know that he's a fucking wrestler. And that is my answer.
I thought you were going to go Bret Hart on The Simpsons, but...
I thought about it. When he said Simpsons, I was like, Bret Hart is my first cameo I think of on The Simpsons. And honestly, you said it didn't count. I think The Simpsons does count.
I think it counts.
I would absolutely qualify voice acting as something in this category. I think occasionally you see... kind of rarely, but maybe like people pop up on Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Ooh.
And I think that it's never like obvious. It never drags the show down. You get shows like The League where they have, NFL players in almost every episode. And
those are usually pretty bad.
Some are okay, but most of them are really, really just like struggling through it.
They're fun moments, but I'm never looking at like Antonio Gates, like bring him back on for some other role.
It's fun because of the cameo aspect, but that's about it. Also, The Big Show and everything he's been in, except for The Big Show.
Yeah, I agree with that. I
Captain Insano, and Waterboy, and as Giant Santa and Jingle All the Way, America's Greatest Christmas Movie. Yeah. So wrestling is my answer.
Good call. I accept it. Nat, who do you got?
Oh, I'm useless on this one. I don't remember cameos that well.
So you're just gonna go with Gaeta or Benny Blanco? Just pick one from Dave, and that's the cheat code.
Go with Gaeta.
That's pretty solid. Yeah.
Hey, do you guys remember Celebrity Deathmatch?
Yeah,
yes.
I loved it.
Yeah,
basically
Celebrity Deathmatch. That's my answer.
How often do they actually get the real people?
Yeah,
We didn't do that, right?
I don't know.
Sometimes.
I feel like they did, but I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah.
I feel like that was part of the whole thing, is that they had the actual people. Then again, I was like 8 when that show was on, so I was easily
Nick,
fooled.
I need you to Google it. That's your new role here, since you're just prepared for the McMillions podcast.
So, BoJack Horseman would be another show, maybe even more so than The Simpsons, when you're talking about constantly having characters, even doing like long stretches over multiple episodes where the actors played themselves. Jessica Biel was just merciless mocking herself on that show. And Celebrity Deathmatch.
Give me the answer. I would do a drum roll, but it'll mess up the audio.
Yeah, and frankly, the answer is not obvious to me immediately here.
Okay, that's good. That's it was not obvious to us immediately when Jeff picked it, but pretty solid. I don't know where else to go with this show, because I think my next topic was going to be the questions of credibility for Lil Dicky, of cultural appropriation, and honestly, without Brandon here for this, I can't conduct this. I'm just smarter than that. I know not to jump into those waters. what else about this show really stuck out? And I guess we'll start with the better question. What do you want to see from Dave in season 2? We got a little bit from Nick, and I'll give him a chance to elaborate any further or wherever he wants to go with it. I'll give you a little bit of time. What do you want to see from the second season? What could get you to stop saying all the negative things about this great show that is becoming a part of the fabric of America?
When the show got a little bit more surreal with Lil Dicky or Dave murdering his younger self, I was pretty much on board for that. I don't know what that says about me, but I like.
That's why Nick's a terrible person. He just condoned child murder.
Yeah. All right.
It also says he's on board with the man-seeking woman. He wants them to copy over from that show entirely.
Well, I think the closer and more dangerous reason for them to not do that would be the similarities with Atlanta already. Atlanta obviously already goes a lot more surreal and absurd. So maybe Dave is playing it a little bit more grounded. Other shows, like Master of None and Louie have used to put their theories in the absurd. So I think Dave is probably going to get more experimental, and I look forward to it.
Okay. Colin, what do you want to see from season 2?
First thing I thought it was more cameos. Give me Snoop Dogg, Fetty Wap, Eminem, whatever we can throw in there. I want to see Dave throw down with some other rappers. And I also am hoping that it shows a lot how he handles the success, because he'll make comments in season 1 about how many views he's got, or like how many whatever, or whoever he's working with. But I want to see some like how he handles the success, like once he really gets famous, because season 1, even though it was on TV in 2020, it's not like Lil Dicky in 2020. It's more like him a few years ago, just based on the success he's had the last few years. So I want to see not only his success, but how he handles it.
All right, Jeff, what do you got?
I want to see him and his girlfriend get back together for sure. I think that'll make that happen.
Classic.
I don't know if he'll be better without her or better with her, or if he was better with her. That I'm waiting to see. If they do stick through episodes without her, it'd be interesting to see how Lil Dicky does, because it's been interesting to see him under pressure and how his beats come out when he's under pressure, or how he raps when he's under pressure. It just seems like he's a lot better when he's under pressure. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
All right, Ethan.
I am looking forward to further development with the supporting characters, and that being what a lot of us talked about being one of the best highlights of the show, is now season 2 already kind of obviously seems like it's going to take this point where he is already big, almost probably at the start of that season. Season 1 is him trying to get into the industry, and they covered over 10 episodes. So season 2, I imagine, is already there. So now it's a matter of how does, Els respond, and what does it do for him? And is there like further storylines with his girlfriend, and how does his manager develop, and all these different characters that we've already seen that were with him at kind of that ground level, and how they develop to that stardom level.
All right, I can already tell you that it'll be super exciting to see Mike, played by Andrew Santino, see him turn into the super dick agent. He's already got shades of that, and I know from his stand-up he's going to be awesome in that role if that's where they decide to take it in season 2, and I assume they will. Nat, what do you want to see from season 2?
I want to see more of Dave's parents.
Yeah.
I love them so much.
Yeah.
I love them. I mean, how could you not? They all dressed up. They bought him a fern. Like, they just went all out.
Wait,
What I wanna know
Dave,
are
Dave,
the
but
rapper's
is
parents
he
going to
Korean?
be there?
Is he Korean?
Like, there
Are
could be a
the rapper's
spin-off.
parents are going to be there?
Oh God, that whole episode is so good.
There could be a spin-off show that's
Ugh.
literally just his parents and Gata. Like,
What is a
I'd watch that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so that's pretty solid. I really want to just keep talking about different stuff on the show, but I have run out of the questions that are entry points, so I'm just going to need you guys to pick it up, be all-star guests, be better than Nick. So we'll start with Nick. What else do you think we should talk about on the show, Dave? Nick, you can't pretend like I haven't done this to you before. You're the punching bag every time. It's just fun.
Oh, no. No, I thought we were wrapping up. I was getting my dinner ready.
You could leave whatever. You just showed up for this for no reason. I don't know why
that would be par for the course for this episode if you just fucking took off right now. Later, you guys wrap it up.
He's one up the shoulders, get ready.
All right, we're getting close, but we want to hit on a few more things. Colin, anything we missed? Any conversations about Dave that we need to talk about?
We did talk about the milking table, which was very important and fantastic. But I don't think we mentioned the sex doll in that scene.
Oh my God!
How we missed that?
After Dave is having intercourse with his girlfriend, he wakes up in the night because he's not satisfied, carries the sex doll from his closet to the bathroom
with the stick. Don't forget the stick.
Oh God!
with the stick, and then his girlfriend. Of course, his girlfriend has to go pee. And so while he's in the bathroom, he tries to hide it in the shower. She rushes in. And that 90 seconds, I don't know if I've ever laughed so hard in my life.
It was pretty good.
There's a line between, is he kind of an aw shucks every guy type guy, or is he kind of a lunatic that has half of a sex doll that really looks like a serial killer's plaything?
Nick brings up a good point. This is what we'll veer and probably do something to get one of us fired from our day jobs. I'll let Ethan go first, but then I'll get us into offensive territory.
In the sense,
day job. So
biggest thing I was gonna say is I agree with Allie. And why does it have legs? I don't know, to simulate like human force. Just him being caught in that moment. Him caught in that moment, as well as, again, going back to the stick when he pulls that out of the way. Oh, I must have tracked this in here. Just for some reason, the fact that he just keeps a stick around to clean out his sex doll and just keeps it on hand is maybe the funniest part of that whole bit to me.
All right. So I was wondering this when I went back and I watched. I'm trying to think of which one of the videos it would have been. I don't think it was ex-boyfriend. I think it was like, what is it, like male, like hype something, whatever the like third video he did where it's like, I just remember there's a scene where he's in the bed and there's a fleshlight rolling on the floor. And all I could think was, growing up, like, we didn't have that type of thing available early enough in our lives to even think it was a solution, like maybe that's something that at a different age, you're young enough and desperate enough, easy enough to steal your parents' credit cards and get that ordered. Maybe younger generations actually think that that's something that's not just super weird and puts you into crazy terror. I don't know. I just know that it seems like, Dave's probably like, I don't know.
Well, I don't.
4 years younger than me. Like, he's like 26, I think, right now. So, like, Nick, I don't know what you're shaking your head at.
Well, because
none of y'all actually owned a fleshlight.
Nope.
Like, is this a thing? Okay, welcome to my first podcast. Fleshlights are great. So, like, I can't blame them. But, like, the whole thing with legs just seems so unnecessary. Like, you can have something that's, like, handheld. Come on, man.
You know what's handheld?
Doesn't feel as good. Let me just tell you.
So here we go. We found the divide.
Right.
It's not just based on age. It's just based on
I was going to say
reference, I guess.
Since Lee Christensen is not on the show, I guess that makes me the resident progressive. And in that sense, I'm going to say to each their own, and no kink shaming. The legs are weird, but that's as far as I'm going to go as far as shaming.
Colin, do you have anything to weigh in on, or do you just pass on this one?
Well, okay, so I know we've been talking about this sex doll, but it is, the timing was perfect because Allie had just been expressing wanting to talk more about sex and what they liked and what she wanted and what he wanted. And the fact that he was hiding this sex doll in the closet and then going in the middle of the night to do things to it. And all of a sudden she's like, I'm your human girlfriend and you won't talk to me about what you want, but you're doing this. It was just like, it made Dave more likable in a weird way because I'm like, he's just stupid. He's just immature and stupid, but his girlfriend still puts up with him. Well, at least until the end of the season. Spoiler alert.
Maybe related to something that Max said earlier, like, you know, Dave, maybe his character is 26, but Lil Dicky, Dave in real life, is 32. And I find it interesting that the show wants to age him down because it's still okay to romanticize a 20-something who wants to make it as a rapper. But a 32-year-old trying to still make it in the industry would apparently be sad or something.
Isn't it also just matching up to his real life time?
Yeah, it's like Colin was saying. Like, I think it's more based on who he was about, 6-7 years ago, probably.
I think it's like 2015, so it's supposed to be 5 years ago because that's about the time he's on the Breakfast Club.
Yeah,
going from being overnight success to being a legitimate rapper with actual albums, and he's bringing on real rappers to be on his tracks.
Right.
So I think it's around then.
I don't think reality should be, a pair of handcuffs that's STEMI creativity. Like, oh, don't worry, this is a true story. If a fictional story would be better, tell that one.
Yeah, but if you're basing it on your jumping off point is his life and how he got there, I think when you could change some details, but when you decide that, okay, he is 33 instead of 24 and up and coming, it is sadder when you're that old and just now, like, I just jumped into rap. So, like, maybe that adds a little bit more to what would make you like the show, Nick. But the rest of us want to see some of that reality, how it plays out in looking behind the curtain, kind of that fourth wall break. And if you change the age, then yeah, it's like, I just kind of get sad anyway. Sometimes Lil Dicky makes me sad because he is the type of rapper that I know he's good, but he's inspiring a lot of people I know in my town that suck at rapping and aren't going to give it up for another 10 years. And I worry about that. It's like, they all think they got it. I'm like, hopefully this show teaches you shouldn't emulate what rappers are talking about in their life experience, because you won't get what they had on their first album when they're talking about the streets, and you won't get what they have on their albums after that, talking about the Lambos and the VIP and all this other stuff, because you're not going to get to experience that, not at least until you're successful. You should talk about the things that works with Lil Dicky, the common things in your life. If you're good at rapping and you fit those into a compelling rap, people will enjoy that and you can make money off it. But they instead focus on the wrong details. The details, what you need to emulate is the time those rappers put in to get good. Lil Dicky spends that time getting good at collecting. He talks about, like, kind of on the show, it's about, I do this slowly. But in real life, it's, if you don't have the money and you still want to produce a great rap album, great rap song, it's going to take you longer than somebody who's in the studio working with great producers, great equipment. He did most of his early stuff with a $400 microphone, which is a little expensive to a lot of people, but he invested in himself. And then he realized once he made that first track and wanted to be a full-time rapper, this costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we're going to talk about the things that, are the real life Dave Burd and how that kind of reflects on the show, and what I kind of wish they had a little bit more in there, he is a groundbreaking individual in terms of breaking out through the internet. And obviously we know YouTube came out in 2006. There's a lot of people, you can go back to stand-up, Dane Cook being one of the first ones who was able to utilize message boards, online, Facebook, whatever, to grow his audience, grow his fandom, and to make a lot of money. Lil Dicky is one of those guys that started doing it in the 2010s, where it's hard to make high quality rap music without all of that investment, all of that capital. And he just got a little bit, he took his time, and he knew this has to be good before I release it. I'm not just releasing it because 4 of my friends thought I had one good bar. And that work ethic, I think you can learn a lot from it. And that's the thing that he knew rappers did. You have to put in the time. Now, once you show what you're capable of, you start making those jumps, you start moving up. And then you can, make even better stuff, which one of the greatest things Dave Burd ever did, I was talking with Ethan yesterday about it, the music video he did for Cheap, where he tries to make this fancy video without
save
spending.
that money. Yeah.
He made that whole video by just asking people to let me use your Lambo for 10 minutes. Let me film in your mansion for 15 minutes. And that sort of work ethic combined with blind optimism is really the American dream. And that's what I learned from Dave. but not even the television show. That's what I learned from looking up Dave Burd in real life and seeing how he's successful. And I think everybody should learn from that.
His working in real life is a great story, but I think him in the show is more
also a great story.
Where he can play video games instead of working. He can just do the freestyle rap when he needs to. That the first viral video he tries to make goes viral. The Lil Dicky in the show is way more fortunate and doesn't seem to work as hard as the Lil Dicky in real life. The show's about erasing pencil lines of reality.
Yep, that's one way to take it, Nick. That's why we brought you on today. Who else has something else to say about the show, about Dave Burd, about why Nick is awful?
Well, I just want to go back to the record contract and how they portrayed that, like walking away from so many offers because he would have to give up creative control. I thought that was emphasized so well, so that, like, you know, people maybe in your little town trying to make it would know, don't give up creative control or you get Vanilla Ice syndrome. And they only gave him $200,000. So I think people think that it's going to be, you know, $1 billion for your first deal when you're getting a couple $100,000 and they might be making millions on you.
Yeah, and it's really, I would say that's where I kind of agree with Nick in terms of what's real and what's not kind of getting blurred in a way that might be a negative. That is like a positive that maybe you take that away at the end of the show. There are people that see that and they have more knowledge than they had going in. It's also really tough, though, because those little tidbits are hard to pick. What is the truth and what's done is kind of a bit. What's done is it just fits the narrative of the show. So that's probably the worst part. Is I think this does open up that door in a way that could give people who want kind of a quick look in the industry, want a little quick tip. Maybe there's, people see other aspects of the show, but they don't notice what Nat just brought up, because I didn't really think about that, other than I just thought it was an interesting moment where, he's trying to pick creative control over the price tag. But I didn't really think about that idea. There's a lot of people that do think it's $1 million off the bat. And it's like, no, it's that first bit influx of cash. So you can keep doing this. And if you keep putting in the work, then you can become a big hit and start actually making that type of Lambo cash that you see rappers start making. So that's a great point there.
I will say, if you hang on to too much creative control, you and your buddies Scott Hall and Kevin Nash will drive WCW World Championship Wrestling into the ground. So
another great point.
That's just another lesson for the kids out there.
Pretty good stuff. Jeff,
do kids listen to the show?
We haven't heard from you in a bit. What was kind of your biggest, if there were life lessons in a show that involves a lot of dick jokes, a show about a guy whose rap name is Lil Dicky, what was the biggest thing you took away?
I don't know if I'm going to talk about that, but one thing did pop up in mind that we haven't discussed yet. When Lil Dicky and Gator was walking by on the sidewalk and the tour bus comes by and says, "Look, it's Wiz Khalifa." And he's like, "Are you Wiz Khalifa?" And he's like, "Yes, I am." And then they just get out walking and shaking their heads.
Are you the gay guy from Modern Family? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And see, Dave was always the one that had issues with people coming up and saying things. And what did we learn from the other characters? It's just like they teach you in improv. Somebody asks you a question, just say yes. Someday they will give you $1 million rap contract. Like, that's how it works. You just got to trust the process, say yes a bunch, even when people, think that, Nick is, I forget, like, which doppelganger offends you the most. I'm trying to. Give me your top 3 of people that somebody says you look like that you really hate when you get that reference.
I think, it just hurts. I wouldn't say I hate it, because I'm not going to.
We're not focused on your feelings. We just want to run down to the list.
Steve Buscemi, Tim Curry, Fry from Futurama, Mac.
I was going to say Abed from Community.
Yeah, solid.
Oh.
I see it.
Maybe it's just the camera, but I don't know.
Yeah, because I think, Mac, were you the one that said, like, Manny Pacquiao?
No, I didn't say that, but I like it. I'm saying it now. Thank you. This was a recon, and you just gave me all the information. This is like on The Wire when they ask him, where is the place that you don't want to go so we won't put you there? And he's like, I don't want to be on the boat. You just got yourself stuck on the boat, Manny Pacquiao. Awesome. Colin, what was your big takeaway from the show, Dave? What was the life lesson you learned?
Well, I think that one of the things that stood out to me was shortly after I watched this show, I saw an interview with Dave Burd on Jimmy Kimmel talking about how a lot of the things on the show he did in real life. He actually did use his bar mitzvah money in real life to make a music video to try to progress his career. And a lot of the characters he actually was friends with. And so I thought it was cool that he stuck true to his guns when the show really could have gone a bunch of different ways. He wanted to portray a real version of himself. So I appreciate that. But also, we've been making fun of Nick a lot, which has been really fun. But a point he made a few minutes ago was that on the show, Lil Dicky might not work as hard as he does in real life. And I think that's true because Dave admitted he worked for years before he ever had views on YouTube. And it doesn't really show that in the show. So shout out to Nick for pointing that out. I think that the show could have done more of showing how far he worked or how many years he spent trying to make it before he finally did. In the show, it just shows him at a library saying, somebody suck me. And then it goes viral.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points, Colin, ones that Nick didn't bring up or didn't articulate very well. I think that was a good job there. But also, since you went against my rule of only saying negative things about Nick, that's the last thing you're going to say for this podcast. I'm trying to think. There was a few more things I wanted to hit for the show, but I think we knocked out enough of it that this has worked out well. And unless it hits me really quickly, we're just going to get on out of here.
Nick, you've been in the bottom of my screen the whole time, and that's annoyed the fuck out of me, and you won't go away. I wish I could replace you with Colin.
Thanks, Jeff.
So you know, Nick.
Jeff knows the rules.
I think you mean cousin Jeff.
Yeah, you were supposed to say cousin Jeff. I was supposed to say it, and I haven't done it at all.
Nick,
You haven't.
Nick, I think the best part of this podcast is when you walked into your own background and disappeared for 5 seconds, and I really
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, nobody cares about my background.
Oh no, you're. I'd actually enjoy more of your background if you could be more of a supporting character in this screen here. I'd appreciate it. No, honestly, I just appreciate there being somebody else as a punching bag. Normally, it's me.
It really is.
Really, yeah. So
also fun.
So me or you, brother.
Yeah. One more thing with Dave, and this does go off Colin's point. I do remember what I was thinking. In terms of stuff that doesn't show up in the show, Nick, I'll give you a chance for rebuttal at the end once we stop the recording. So Dave has all these like aspects of his life that aren't brought in. Like when he got started, he was working at an ad agency, just originally just being kind of an accounts man, and then he moves to creative, which is probably where Nick should have gone with his life and then become a rapper and maybe wouldn't be mean to him. But he was assigned to do like videos, and I think he said he did it for like Doritos. And it wasn't even like an ad for Doritos. He got to be the guy who did like some video they showed at like a company Doritos meeting thing that they just brought him in for that. But he got to use really fancy equipment. And that's when he learned how simple it was to shoot your own video as long as you had the right equipment, you knew how to do it. And part of that video where he tries to spend as little as he can, he rents out the cameras and returns them. Or he might have bought the cameras and then returned them. So he doesn't even pay the rental fee. He just buys cameras that he knows he's not going to keep and sends them back. And it is crazy that we're in this era where we can do a podcast like this and my face is in high def on this DSLR camera. And it wasn't the cheapest thing, but it was reasonable for me to purchase it. There is so much technology that we can put together. And the fact I've been able to do this podcast for 3 years is because at different times on Amazon, I could jump on, spend $100 to buy a new piece of equipment and slowly build up studio grade equipment. That's something that wasn't available before this decade. And that is one of the other big takeaways I get from Dave. It's not just the hard work. It's that we have now gotten to this point where technology is more readily available. It is still not easy to obtain. You still have to decide, I want to dedicate myself to this, and you're going to have to invest in it. And I don't know how much I just connected with that because I've been going through the same creative processes of trying to buy that equipment, making sure that if there's 12 people listening, those 12 people know that we've put a lot into the production value. So that's something I definitely connect with looking back, and I wish that was incorporated into the show just a little bit more. Nat, anything else for Dave you want to talk about before we get on out of here?
Are you a fan of seeing Mac in high definition?
Always.
Have you seen him in
Give
low
me that
definition?
4K Mac. I'm all about that. Eat it up. I don't know
How do
what
you
that
like
means.
seeing Nick in decent definition?
I don't know. I feel like my definition is so weird because I have this white background.
Yeah, but you got the
more-
hair and the glasses. You're popping.
Like, I just look celestial right now. So, like, I'm pretty good with that.
Nick looks
feel
like he
like,
just lost to Floyd Mayweather.
Kind of reminds me of the Silicon Valley episode when Dinesh like fixes their like Wi-Fi connection so he can stream with the girls. Like, it's me, Pakistani Denzel. She's like, Pakistani Denzel. It's back in 4K.
I
All
feel
right,
like the big takeaway from Dave is just like give up your job and become a SoundCloud rapper.
That's true. I wish I had the skills and I would do it. That's the big key is you have to have the dedication. You have to put the time into it. You also have to actually be good. And I realized very quickly I'm not very good at a lot of things. So
You don't have to be that good. I wrote a rap, and
I want to hear this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
so shout out. You can look it up on YouTube. It's the
What?
Cool School, Mr. Josh.
Let's hear a live version.
Yeah.
yeah, go now.
Let's hear a live version.
But I don't have the lyrics in front of me here. But I'm saying you can watch the video. You can see some really talented child rappers.
So Nick Adams just said that when we start the McMillions podcast tomorrow, it will open up with Nick rapping his famous, what was it called again? School raps?
I don't think I can rap it. I mean, the rights are with the producer.
We're on a podcast. There's no rights violations and nobody watches this.
Nobody sees the crime. There is no crime.
We need at least 1,000 views before anybody even looks our way.
So where is
Kazan Mack is not a lawyer, by the way, so
That's
throwing that out there.
I right now Kinsey's studying to be a like a law clerk or something, and I listen to her read her book sometimes, and I don't understand a lot of it, but I'm practically a lawyer now.
Kenzie has repeated courtroom moments enough to you just from her journalism career that you're basically a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's how that.
I've watched like 4 Zoom like trials like this month. Like I'm a lawyer now.
Yeah.
Watch the OJ doc.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, Cuba Gooding Jr. was a little weird, but I thought that the OJ show on FX was pretty good too. All the way around, FX makes great stuff. Nick, I did promise you a chance for rebuttal. We did make you the punching bag. It seemed like fun, but anything else you want to say before we get on out of here?
No, frankly, I liked Dave probably. I think everybody would have figured out more than it was led on to believe. And I really appreciate that, most people ended up agreeing with this punching bag on a lot of points.
I didn't. I looked out for you.
Nick,
Wait,
you're the
just
best.
kidding.
You're the best punching bag in the biz. Also, you make great stuff. I think you sent us a chat link to the rap, but also he makes some really good scripts. And if you want to give your second to plug whatever the latest thing is that you've made that people need to go watch, because I've watched a lot of your short films. They're pretty good. I'm not saying that just to make up for how mean I've been throughout this. Nick's a really good writer. I really enjoy his stuff, and hopefully there's some other big things that come out in the future, because I expect big things from you, Nick.
Oh, well, I appreciate that a lot. No, for real, check out Mr. Josh's Cool School. I can't speak to every episode, but the synonyms and antonyms episode was the one I wrote.
Only good one in the bunch.
I mean,
That's what I said. You don't have to say it so you don't get work again. I said it. All right, we're gonna have to get out of here. Colin, anything to say before your phone goes completely black?
I apologize. The sun has been setting, and I should have turned some lights on, and it's just the gradual fade. So I hope you guys appreciate that. No, if you haven't watched Dave season 1, watch it now. FXX Hulu.
Nailed it. All right, everybody, we're out. That's it. That's all we have for this episode of the Q Crew. We'll be back shortly with one on McMillions and one on whatever we start watching next. Later, folks.